If you're excited about 9 to 5, go ahead and hit that like button because things are getting out of control in a very good way for this game. Today we are going to be talking about the recent developer blog that Redhill Games studio released, sharing some information on the progress they are making on 9 to 5. Last time we played, we had a lot of fun, but we thought several aspects of the game needed serious changes in order for the game to compete against other tactical shooters on the market. There were already very solid foundations, but those aspects that needed improvements just felt like they were making the game feel a lot cheaper. The weapon profiles was obviously one of those, since it felt like we were shooting BB guns, and this is getting fixed, but many more aspects of the game are getting improved, and we will go over them in this video, and I will be sharing my personal thoughts on those improvements. So without further ado, let's get started. The developers redid all the audio for the different weapon profiles by combining samples they recorded themselves and world-class audio samples from libraries used by, I guess, the most professional engineers out there. All of these enabled the team to create sound effects that not only created more satisfying and realistic weapon profiles, but also enabled the team to add more details to those sound effects, such as the mechanical parts of the weapons or variants of the weapon profiles depending on what weapon is being used, but also where it is being used. Are you shooting from a roof, from a large or small room, from a street? All of these will now be in 9 to 5 moving forward. Let's hear the previews the developers shared in their blog. That sounded amazing, and it's definitely on the right track. Good players could actually use this to better understand the location of enemy players depending on the sound effects they hear while playing. I personally have experienced this in other more realistic games where I was able to determine if an enemy was firing from the outside of a building or from the room next to me because of how the shots were echoing in the building, how much bass there was in the audio, and so on. I'm really satisfied with the amount of work that is going into this aspect of the game because weapons finally feel more realistic and more satisfying to use. One other very important aspect of any competitive tactical shooter games is obviously the audio, and the team is working really hard to make the 3D audio more accurate so you can better determine where enemies are coming from. The HUD itself needs a bit of rework to better inform you where the shots are coming from with visual cues, but the audio is already getting quite some love. A brand new audio occlusion system has been developed to resolve the problem of not being able to determine where the shots were coming from. With the new variants of weapons profile, the system is already giving more accurate information, as we will hear in the preview the developers shared in their dev blog. Just bear in mind it's the first iteration of their new system and it's still a work in progress version and is subject to changes before the release of the final version of this new feature gets released. It's definitely going in the right direction. There is still a bit of work to do. I couldn't really tell when it was coming from below me in the video, but remember, this is the first iteration of their new system and have seen several people saying the same on their Discord, so I'm sure they are aware that the system needs more work before getting released. Another thing that felt like we were shooting BB guns and walking with plastic weapons were the animations. It didn't really feel like there was any weight or much feedback when shooting weapons or when moving with them. So their animation team spent a lot of time reworking everything, so weapons are a lot more realistic when shooting and when reloading if the mag is empty and there's no bullet in the chamber, or if the operator is doing a combat reload and so on, there will be different animations. All of this is also better synchronized with the new sound effects, so you can imagine the amount of work that went into reworking all of this, because it wasn't just making new movements. They had to work very closely with their audio team to make sure everything done by the operator and everything happening on the weapon was synchronized with what you are hearing as well. Weapons are also getting better ADS animations and recoil patterns, adding more realistic randomness to the weapon behaviors when shooting, which really helps with feeling the weight of the weapons and be more surgical when firing as well. Let's have a look at the preview the developers shared.
Reloading. Need to reload. Need to reload. Reloading. I'm reloading. Reloading. Changing mags. Need to reload.
Yeah, you can definitely feel like weapons have more kick and more weight. The only thing that still bothers me is that the operator uses the charging handle instead of the bolt release when changing his mag. In the first clip, I can already hear operator Drusky flipping his desk right there. But overall, it's a lot of good work going into these new animations, and I'm really excited to see what they are going to do for lighter and heavier weapons like SMGs, LMGs, and sniper rifles. Now, a lot of people were complaining about how inconsistent the weapon damage was during the previous beta session, and the team spent a lot of time reworking some of the weapons, range effectiveness, bullet spread parameters, but they were still getting conflicting feedback all over the place. So they decided that it would most definitely be best to actually just revamp and simplify the armor system. You see, in the previous beta versions of the game, you could deal different damage to different parts of the body and armors, and it went into this very complex meta, which to me never really made much sense. The game already has many other complex areas with the crafting, the factions, the loadouts, the way to progress, the team composition, the maps, and sometimes it just feels like adding more complexity to a game in order to make a good game doesn't make much sense anymore. You start running all of legit arguments to justify this kind of complexity, especially in a tactical shooter game when things go very fast and you don't really have the time to utilize that knowledge you have about those very complex systems. Even training wouldn't help in such situations. Personally, I feel like making the body armor system global and more simple actually makes the game more realistic, more fun, and more hardcore to play. For instance, a lot of people refer to Escape from Tarkov as being a super realistic tactical shooter game, although you can actually do surgeries on the field. But you can fire 50 rounds of 5.56 in someone wearing a body armor, but they will still be running and jumping around as if nothing happened to them because they are wearing a tier 6 armor, whatever that means. The kinetic energy of a bullet hitting a body armor is so strong that you would actually be definitely pushed back if not knocked down by the impact. So I think a simplified body armor system is a welcome change That will also make it a lot easier for the developers to add and balance weapons in the future, because it will be one viable system against a fixed system rather than two viable systems working against each other all the time. So from a designer and a gamer perspective who wants to get into the meta of the game, it's a lot better to handle. On top of all of that, we really see how they have improved the visuals of the games without changing much actually. There's just, more variations in the colors, and the contrast and the saturation of the colors is, in my opinion, better handled. It really makes the game look a lot better and more pleasant to play. A lot of work is going into 9 to 5, and I cannot wait to be back on the battlefield. 9 to 5 is definitely going to be a very interesting experimental tactical shooter game mixing the world of Payday 2 and Rainbow Six. I really hope you enjoyed this video, and if you did, please consider leaving a like and a comment below to let me know what you think of the changes the team is making to 9 to 5. I'm Scott Hotrod of the R.O.D.E Foundation, and I produce highly educational and cinematic content, mostly covering tactical shooter games. Thanks again for watching, and I will see you next time.